Welcome aboard Amtrak's most unusual state-sponsored service, with passenger cars from the 1950s, onboard vending machines, and big ambitions. This is the Piedmont. It's one of Amtrak's top success stories in recent decades, and a favorite among North Carolina travelers between the state's capital Raleigh and largest city, Charlotte. But why is my coach named after a vegetable? How does the aging rolling stock handle 79 miles per hour? And just how hard is it to get to the train by public transit? The only way to find out is to go for a ride. Amtrak's Piedmont is a state-sponsored corridor service that runs 173 miles from Charlotte, North Carolina's largest city, to Raleigh, the state capital. The latter is where I'm beginning my journey, descending through the clouds into Raleigh-Durham International Airport.
There is no direct bus from this airport to downtown Raleigh, as strange as that may seem. Instead, you have to take the bus to a transit center near the airport and then take another bus from there to Raleigh, unless it's Sunday.
This part of North Carolina is known as the Research Triangle, as its three main cities, Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, are each home to large universities that presumably do a lot of research on triangles.
Transit app basically tells you to take the bus like one stop to this random roadside stop to be super safe. Because I've had a lot of close calls this morning in Chelsea Drawbridge. I'm gonna do what transit app says and get off on the side of the road.
A Go Triangle bus arrives. It's not particularly full. I take it one stop, getting off on the side of Airport Boulevard.
And literally right behind it is the bus coming from Raleigh. Oh my goodness, there's two buses in a row. First one says RDU Airport, don't want that.
The Go Triangle bus into Raleigh has comfier seats and more passengers than the airport bus, but it's also a bit grimy on the inside. We take this bus down the highway headed towards NC State University and downtown. Interestingly, there's at least one sign on the highway advertising something called NC by Train. That's a brand name used by the rail division of the North Carolina Department of Transportation to advertise the Piedmont and its sister train, the Carolinian. They've got a fantastic website that's very easy to navigate, and they still release printed timetables, unlike Amtrak as a whole. As I walk over the tracks, I can see my Piedmont consist pulling into the station. Then I arrive at Morgan Street Food Hall, where I pick up my barbecue. From here, I head down the street to the Union Station Transit Facility, a sheltered downtown transit hub for local buses, which opens onto a plaza that I follow to the Amtrak station, where I'll be getting on the Piedmont. Raleigh Union Station opened in 2018, replacing an older ex-Southern Railway station, and it's named after the city's former Union Depot that operated until the 1950s. Built out of a vacant industrial warehouse, the modern Raleigh Union Station features food options, benches and couches, and ticketing and luggage facilities for Amtrak passengers. My Piedmont train is already boarding, so I head down a long passageway with views of the head house, then up an escalator onto the platform. It's here we get a first good look at our four-car train. Coaches Fraser Fir and Sweet Potato are named after North Carolina flora. The Piedmont's coach fleet was manufactured in the 1960s and saw service on the likes of Union Pacific and Kansas City Southern. At the rear of the train is a former GO Transit EMD F59PH, decked out in a special livery honoring the North Carolina state flag and the 30th anniversary of the Piedmont. This is one of 6 such locomotives on the Piedmont service, and there's another on our front. The Piedmont fleet also includes 2 streamlined F59 PHIs and 5 unpowered cab control units. I head inside Sweet Potato, where the modern Amtrak seats stand out against the vintage lights, luggage racks, and window curtains. At the back of the car, there's a semi-enclosed area with tables, and since the Piedmont has an open seating policy, like most Amtrak services, I decide to sit here for the ride. One of the plugs at my table actually works. I open my barbecue and chat with our conductor, who speaks with a friendly southern twang. Then we're off. Our 173-mile journey from Raleigh to Charlotte is expected to take 3 hours and 10 minutes, just shy of an hour longer than driving with no brakes or traffic. Raleigh is also home to the North Carolina State Fairgrounds, which have their own Piedmont stop just for special events. A track splits off to the south, carrying the Floridian towards its namesake state, and moments later we pull into our first stop of Cary, population 180,000. This city had Amtrak service restored in 1996, and in 2006, a second platform was constructed at the station for trains to Florida. Once we're back up to speed, we blast through the forest that surrounds much of the route, and I begin to notice that these 60-year-old passenger cars sway side to side a lot more than Amtrak's newer equipment. Durham is next, with an urban population of 300,000. The city station head house is built out of an old tobacco warehouse, while the platform opened in 1990 for a then-new train called the Carolinian. In 1984, Amtrak launched a pilot train called the Carolinian in collaboration with the North Carolina Department of Transportation as a section of the New York to Savannah Palmetto. This split off in Richmond and ran between Raleigh and Charlotte. However, Low ridership, which some blamed on poor marketing, led to the end of the service. In 1990, Amtrak and North Carolina teamed up to bring back the Carolinian as a segment of the Palmetto, and by 1991, it became its own Charlotte to New York City day train. Today, the Carolinian is Amtrak's longest state-sponsored route. This time, there was enough ridership on the corridor that NCDOT wanted a second daily trip between Raleigh and Charlotte. Amtrak said no, they didn't have enough equipment, so NCDOT went out and bought their own. That's why the Piedmont uses different locomotives and much older cars than the rest of Amtrak's services. The first Piedmont round trip launched in 1995, followed by a second in 2010, a third in 2018, and a fourth in 2023, meaning travelers now have 5 trains in each direction every day between Raleigh and Charlotte. The name Piedmont comes from the Piedmont Plateau region of the eastern United States, a French name that ultimately comes from the Latin pedemontium, or at the foot of the mountains. Hey, it's not plagiarism if you're ripping off your own video. The doors between coaches are purely mechanical, and they're heavy. We pass through Fazer Fur and Honeybee, arriving in Bogue Sound, an ex-Army coach baggage car from the 1950s. This contains a few tables and Amtrak's only vending machines in lieu of a cafe car. There's also free tea, coffee, and bottled water for all passengers. As for the toilets on this train, they're not the most modern looking, but they're decently clean. Some Piedmont runs also have train hosts, volunteers who ride to assist passengers, provide helpful information, and teach them about the line and its history. We pass through Burlington, population 57,000, and blow by Elon University. No connection. Greensboro is next, population about 300,000, including one Jeb Brooks, where tracks from the Crescent approach us, serving their own platforms before joining our track. The Crescent runs from New York to New Orleans, and you can watch my ride on that in the video linked above. The Piedmont runs on the North Carolina Railroad, a state-owned rail corridor used by Amtrak and Norfolk Southern. Completed in 1856, the North Carolina Railroad served as a critical spine for the state's development in the mid to late 19th century, and in the modern era, the state has poured money into upgrading tracks and infrastructure for expanded freight and passenger operations. High Point is next, so named in 1856 because it was the highest point on the North Carolina Railroad. The city is home to 114,000 today. Its modern station was built by the Southern Railway in 1907, and tracks were placed in a downtown trench in the 1930s. The Piedmont is one of Amtrak's greatest success stories outside the Northeast Corridor. It's gone from 1 daily train to 4, and ridership has generally grown for the past half-decade, smashing through pre-COVID numbers, due in no small part to the 4th round trip added in 2023. According to NC by Train, combined ridership for the Piedmont and Carolinian grew from 522,000 in 2022 to over 720,000 in 2024. North Carolina is uniquely well connected by intercity rail, and they're not slowing down, with recent studies looking into new equipment, full on-board cafe service on the Piedmont, route expansions all over the state, and even trains to Atlanta. Expanded service to Richmond and points north could be on the way too, thanks to a long-abandoned Seaboard airline right-of-way. Check out Banks Rail for a great video explainer about that. Regardless of what happens next, North Carolina and its partnership with Amtrak show us that a scrappy top-down approach can go a long way towards sustainable passenger rail that people genuinely want to use. As for us, we've reached the end of the line in Charlotte, North Carolina's largest city, with almost 1 million urban residents. Passengers empty out onto the station platform, where we get a last look at our coach and locomotive, ready to make the trip back to Raleigh. A ramp takes us to a rather wet underground passage leading to the modest head house, built in 1962 by the Southern Railway. Charlotte's transit agency CATS deviates their 11 bus to meet oncoming trains. Today, nobody gets on or off, not even me, because someone else is picking me up.
Hey! It's been over a month since you've been in a Classy Wheel video.
Right? It's getting ridiculous.